Have you ever wondered what would take for a heart encased in ice to finally thaw? For some, the fortress of solitude becomes so familiar that the thought of letting anyone breach those carefully constructed walls seems more terrifying than spending a lifetime alone. Yet sometimes, it's in our most unexpected encounters that we find the courage to risk everything for the chance at something we never knew we needed. This is a story of two souls, one wrapped in wealth but poverty-stricken in connection, the other rich in compassion but bankrupt in self-care, and how a single night would forever alter the course of their carefully planned lives. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome to Heartbeat Narratives, your ultimate destination for all things romances, connection, and heartfelt stories. I'm thrilled to have you here, sharing this amazing journey of exploring love in all its beautiful, complex, and magical forms. Whether you're a hopeless romantic, someone searching for relationship insights, or just love diving into heartwarming content, you're exactly where you need to be. If you're enjoying what you see, I'd be incredibly grateful if you could hit that subscribe button to stay connected with our Heartbeat Narratives community. Drop a like to show some love, support, and motivation. Share this video with someone who might need a little romance in their life. Your support means the world to me and helps us continue creating content that celebrates love, connection, and the beautiful stories that bring us together. The evening sun cast long shadows across Aurora Bay's skyline as Ethan Cole stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse office, watching the city transform into a sea of lights below. At 35, he had achieved more than most could dream of in several lifetimes. Cole Tech Innovations had revolutionized renewable energy storage, making clean energy viable for developing nations and earning Ethan billions in the process. Yet as he stood there, amber whiskey untouched in his hand, he couldn't shake the emptiness that seemed to grow with each passing year. "Mr. Cole?" His assistant's voice broke through his thoughts. "The board is waiting in the conference room." Ethan nodded, straightening his impeccably tailored suit. "Thank you, Diana." In the meeting, while his CFO presented quarterly earnings that had exceeded projections yet again, Ethan found his mind wandering. The numbers were impressive: growth percentages, market share increases, stock valuations, but lately they'd begun to feel hollow. And finally, the CFO concluded, "The PR team recommends we capitalize on this momentum with a major philanthropic initiative." This caught Ethan's attention. "What did you have in mind?" Diana slid a folder across the polished table. "Several options, sir. Education grants, environmental conservation, or perhaps healthcare innovation." Something about the healthcare option resonated with Ethan. Perhaps it was a memory of his mother, who had passed away from a preventable condition when he was 20, a loss that had cemented his reluctance to form close bonds. Healthcare, he decided, something impactful, something that changes lives. Later that night, in his sprawling but sparsely decorated mansion overlooking the bay, Ethan reviewed the proposals. One in particular stood out: a research initiative aimed at improving prenatal care in underserved communities. The principal investigator was a Dr. Amelia Hart from Aurora General Hospital. Her proposal was thorough, passionate, and practical. Unlike the other applications filled with corporate jargon and vague objectives, Dr. Hart's outlined specific goals, methodologies, and measurable outcomes. Equally impressive was her personal statement, explaining how growing up in a rural community with limited healthcare access had shaped her mission to ensure every expectant mother received quality care. For the first time in months, Ethan felt genuinely interested in something beyond balance sheets and technological innovations. "Diana," he called his assistant the next morning, "arrange a meeting with Dr. Amelia Hart. I want to discuss her proposal personally." Across town at Aurora General Hospital, Dr. Amelia Hart hurried through the bustling corridors of the maternal health ward, her white coat fluttering behind her. At 32, she had established herself as one of the hospital's most dedicated physicians, often working double shifts and volunteering at the free clinic on weekends. "Dr. Hart," a nurse called after her, "you have a message from Cole Tech Innovations. Mr. Cole would like to meet with you tomorrow regarding your research proposal." Amelia nearly dropped her tablet. "Ethan Cole? The Ethan Cole wants to meet with me." "Apparently so," the nurse grinned. "Looks like your application made an impression. That night in her modest apartment, Amelia prepared for the meeting while her cat, Hippocrates, watched lazily from the couch. She'd submitted the proposal without much hope. Major funding for maternal health was notoriously difficult to secure, especially for programs focused on underprivileged communities. As she reviewed her presentation, Amelia found herself looking up information about the elusive Ethan Cole. Despite his wealth and influence, there were surprisingly few personal details available. No significant relationships, no scandals, virtually no social life documented in the press. Just business achievements and the occasional charity gala appearance where he always stood slightly apart from the crowd, expression inscrutable. "He's a mystery, Hippocrates," she told her cat, who yawned in response. "But if he's willing to fund this project, I don't need to solve it." The next day, Amelia arrived at the sleek Coltech headquarters downtown, clutching her presentation materials nervously. The building itself was a marvel of sustainable architecture. Solar glass windows, rooftop gardens, and a rainwater recycling system that had won numerous awards. Diana welcomed her with professional courtesy. "Dr. Hart, Mr. Cole is expecting you. This way, please." Ethan rose from behind his desk when Amelia entered. Their eyes met, and for a moment, both seemed surprised by the other. Ethan had expected someone older, perhaps more intimidating given the authority in her writing. Amelia had expected someone colder, perhaps more aloof given his reputation for reclusiveness. "Dr. Hart," he extended his hand. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for considering my proposal, Mr. Cole," she replied, noticing his firm handshake and the unexpected warmth in his eyes that contradicted his reserved demeanor. What was scheduled as a 30-minute meeting extended to 2 hours as Amelia outlined her vision for the prenatal care program. Ethan asked insightful questions that revealed he had thoroughly read her proposal, something rarely experienced by researchers when meeting with potential donors. "Your approach is different," he observed. "Most funding requests focus on equipment or facilities, but you're emphasizing community health workers and mobile clinics." Amelia nodded. "Buildings don't save lives, Mr. Cole. People do. The most sophisticated hospital is useless if patients can't access it. Our program brings care to mothers where they are." Something shifted in Ethan's expression, a flicker of genuine respect. "My mother died from complications after a routine procedure. The hospital was excellent, but the follow-up care was non-existent. She was too proud to say she was struggling." The personal admission surprised them both. Ethan rarely spoke about his mother, even to people he'd known for years. "I'm sorry to hear that," Amelia said softly. "That's exactly the gap we're trying to close, making sure no one falls through cracks." By the end of the meeting, Ethan had not only agreed to fund the program, but also expressed interest in being personally involved in its development. "This isn't just a donation opportunity, Dr. Hart," he said as they concluded. "This is something I believe in." As Amelia left the building, she couldn't help but feel she had glimpsed something few people ever saw, the human being behind the billionaire facade. And despite her professional satisfaction, she found herself curious to see more. Over the following weeks, what began as a professional collaboration evolved into something neither Ethan nor Amelia had anticipated. The prenatal care initiative demanded frequent meetings, site visits, and planning sessions that brought them together regularly. Ethan surprised his executive team by clearing his schedule for project meetings he would typically delegate. Amelia found herself looking forward to their interactions with an eagerness that extended beyond professional interest. During a visit to a potential clinic site in a struggling neighborhood on Aurora Bay South Side, Amelia noticed Ethan's discomfort as local residents stared at his luxury vehicle and designer clothes. "Not your usual stomping grounds?" she asked, hiding a smile. "That obvious?" Ethan replied, loosening his tie slightly. "You look like you're expecting to be mugged at any moment. I'm simply observing." Later, as they toured the dilapidated community center that would be renovated into a health clinic, Amelia watched Ethan transform. He engaged with community leaders, listened intently to their needs, and took notes personally rather than delegating to his assistant. "You're full of surprises, Mr. Cole," she commented as they left. "Most billionaires would have sent a representative." "I'm not most billionaires," he replied simply. Then, after a pause, "And please call me Ethan." The shift to first names marked a subtle but significant change in their relationship. One evening, after a particularly productive meeting with medical equipment suppliers, Ethan hesitated before they parted ways. "Would you like to continue this discussion over dinner?" he asked, with an uncertainty that seemed at odds with his confident business persona. "There's a restaurant near here that I've heard is excellent." Amelia was taken aback by the invitation, but found herself nodding. "I'd like that." The restaurant was intimate and unpretentious, not the exclusive establishment Amelia had expected. Over dinner, their conversation drifted from the project to more personal territories. Ethan spoke about his childhood in a wealthy but emotionally sterile household, where achievements were expected rather than celebrated. Amelia shared stories of growing up with 4 siblings in a loving but financially struggling family. "We never had much," she recalled, "but we had each other. My mother worked 2 jobs to put me through undergraduate studies until I could secure scholarships." "You were fortunate in the ways that matter," Ethan observed quietly. "My parents provided everything except presents. My father was always working, my mother always socializing. Nannies raised me until boarding school took over. As weeks turned to months, these dinners became a regular occurrence. They discovered shared interests in classical music and obscure documentaries." Ethan found himself laughing more than he had in years at Amelia's dry wit and self-deprecating humor. Amelia began to see beyond Ethan's reserved exterior to the thoughtful, complex man beneath. Neither acknowledged the growing connection between them, both cautious for different reasons. Ethan, wary of vulnerability after a lifetime of emotional isolation. Amelia, hesitant after her engagement had ended 3 years earlier when her fiancé decided he couldn't handle her demanding career. Their professional collaboration flourished. The prenatal care initiative expanded beyond its initial scope, with Ethan suggesting technological innovations that could extend the program's reach. Amelia brought medical expertise and community understanding that gave those innovations practical application. One afternoon, during a demonstration of a new mobile ultrasound system, Ethan watched Amelia explain the technology to a group of community health workers. Her passion was palpable, her expertise evident in every word. "You're remarkable," he said later as they walked to their cars. "The way you translate complex medical information into understandable terms without condescension. It's a gift." Amelia looked up, surprised by the compliment. "Thank you. I just remember how intimidating medical jargon was for my family. No one should feel alienated from their own health care." Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary, a current of unspoken feelings passing between them. Ethan cleared his throat and looked away first. "The Foundation Gala is next weekend," he said. "Would you consider attending as my guest? The project could use the exposure to potential additional funders." Amelia recognized the professional justification for what it was, a safe way to extend a more personal invitation. "I'd be honored to attend," she replied. "For the project, of course." They gave a joint presentation about the prenatal care initiative that received enthusiastic support from the attendees. As they fielded questions afterward, Amelia couldn't help but notice how seamlessly they complemented each other, her medical knowledge balancing his business acumen. "We make a good team," Ethan murmured as they stepped away from the crowd. "We do," she agreed, feeling a flutter of something beyond professional satisfaction. Later, as the orchestra played and couples filled the dance floor, Ethan hesitated before extending his hand. "Would you do me the honor?" The night of the gala arrived, and Amelia felt uncharacteristically nervous as she prepared. She had purchased a deep blue evening gown, simple but elegant, that represented a significant splurge on her physician's salary. When Ethan arrived to pick her up, his momentary speechlessness upon seeing her confirmed she had made the right choice. "You look—" he began, then seemed to search for adequate words. "Absolutely stunning." At the gala, Amelia observed Ethan in his natural element, moving through crowds of wealthy and influential people with practiced ease, though she noticed how he maintained a certain distance, never fully engaging beyond what was necessary. With her, however, he was different, more relaxed, more genuine. Dancing with him felt both natural and exhilarating. Ethan moved with unexpected grace, guiding her confidently across the floor while maintaining a respectful distance. But as the music continued, that distance gradually diminished until Amelia could feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her palm. "Everyone is watching us," she whispered, suddenly aware of curious glances from other attendees. "Let them," Ethan replied, his eyes never leaving hers. "I only see you." The evening of the gala marked a turning point. Though neither explicitly acknowledged it, something fundamental had shifted between them. Their meetings became less formal, their conversations more personal. Ethan began sharing childhood memories he'd never disclosed to anyone. Amelia revealed her dreams and disappointments with an openness that surprised her. One rainy Saturday, Ethan invited Amelia to his countryside estate outside Aurora Bay, a property few people had ever visited. The sprawling house was architecturally impressive but lacked the warmth of a true home. Minimalist furniture, pristine surfaces, and a noticeable absence of personal touches created an atmosphere more suitable for a design magazine than daily living. "It's beautiful," Amelia commented as Ethan gave her a tour, "but it doesn't feel like you." Ethan looked around as though seeing the place through new eyes. "I suppose it isn't. I hired a designer when I purchased it. I've never bothered to make changes. Where do you relax? Read a book? Watch terrible reality TV when no one's looking?" A smile tugged at his lips. "I don't watch terrible reality TV. Everyone has a guilty pleasure, Ethan." He led her to a small study tucked away at the back of the house, the only space that bore his personal imprint. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes on physics, philosophy, and surprisingly classic literature. A worn leather chair sat beside a window overlooking the garden, a cashmere throw draped carelessly across it. "This is more like it," Amelia said, running her fingers along the book spines. "This feels like you." It's the one room the designer wasn't allowed to touch. Outside, the rain intensified, drumming against the windows as they settled into a conversation about their favorite books. Ethan recommended an obscure novel he thought she might enjoy. Amelia challenged his interpretation of a classic they both read. Hours passed unnoticed. When thunder rumbled overhead and the power flickered momentarily, Ethan suggested dinner. To Amelia's surprise, he led her to the kitchen rather than calling for catering or suggesting a restaurant. "You cook?" she asked, watching him move confidently around the space, gathering ingredients. "Another guilty pleasure," he admitted. "There's something satisfying about creating something tangible, especially when most of my work involves digital innovations and abstract concepts." They prepared the meal together, a simple but elegant pasta dish, working in comfortable synchrony as though they'd done it countless times before. Over dinner, accompanied by a bottle of wine from Ethan's impressive cellar, their conversation deepened. "Why have you stayed single all these years?" Amelia asked finally, giving voice to the question that had lingered in her mind. "Surely you've had opportunities to find someone." Ethan considered the question, swirling the wine in his glass. "Partly circumstance, partly choice. In my 20s, building the company consumed every waking moment. In my 30s, he paused. "I suppose I convinced myself I preferred solitude. The truth is, I never learned how to let people in. Vulnerability wasn't valued in my family." The honesty of his answer moved her. "And now," his eyes met hers across the table, "now I'm beginning to question whether solitude is really what I want." As the evening progressed, neither seemed eager to end it. They moved to the living room where Ethan lit a fire to ward off the chill brought by the storm. Sitting beside each other on the sofa, the conversation flowed from serious topics to light-hearted reminiscences, punctuated by comfortable silences. During one such silence, Ethan reached out hesitantly and tucked a strand of hair behind Amelia's ear. The simple gesture held such tenderness that her breath caught. "I've never met anyone like you," he said quietly. "You see the world with such compassion and clarity. And I've never met anyone who hides such depth behind such carefully constructed walls," she replied. Something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. The walls have served their purpose. Until now. The moment hung between them, laden with possibility. Then, with deliberate slowness, Ethan leaned forward and kissed her. It was gentle at first, almost questioning, but deepened as Amelia responded, years of solitude and longing dissolving the connection they'd both been moving toward for months. That night changed everything. In the sanctuary of Ethan's countryside home, isolated by the storm that raged outside, they found in each other what both had been searching for: understanding, acceptance, and a passion neither had experienced before. Morning came with cleared skies and a new reality. They lay together in Ethan's bed, the early light casting a golden glow across the room. Neither spoke immediately, both processing the significance of what had happened between them. No regrets. Ethan asked finally, a trace of uncertainty in his voice. Amelia turned to face him, taking in the vulnerability in his expression. None, she assured him, touching his face gently. You. Only that it took me 35 years to find you. In the weeks that followed, they navigated their evolving relationship with care, conscious of its fragility and value. The prenatal care initiative continued to thrive, expanding to additional communities with promising results. Professionally, they maintained appropriate boundaries, but privately, they grew closer than either had believed possible. Ethan began to change in subtle ways that didn't escape notice. His executive team exchanged glances when he suggested more flexible working hours for employees with families. His housekeeper remarked on new persona. Touches appearing in the formerly sterile mansion. Photographs, books left open on tables, even a regrettable attempt at a houseplant that Amelia tried to rescue. For a part, Amelia found herself dreaming of possibilities she'd set aside years ago, a true partnership, perhaps even a family someday. Her colleagues noticed a new lightness in her demeanor, though she remained as dedicated as ever to her patients. 6 weeks after the night at the countryside house, Amelia sat in a colleague's office, staring at test results with disbelief. "Are you sure?" she asked, medical knowledge temporarily abandoned in the face of personal shock. Dr. Reyes smiled kindly. "I ran them twice. You're definitely pregnant, Amelia, and based on the HCG levels, there might be more than one." Amelia placed a hand on her still flat abdomen, emotions swirling too rapidly to process. Joy, fear, uncertainty, wonder, all competed for dominance as she considered how to share the news with Ethan. Amelia spent the next week in a state of distracted contemplation, alternating between exhilaration and apprehension. She had always wanted children, but the timing and circumstances were unexpected, to say the least. More concerning was the uncertainty of how Ethan would react. Their relationship, while profound, was still new, and Ethan, with his carefully ordered life and long-standing solitude, had never mentioned children in their conversations about the future. Meanwhile, Ethan noticed a subtle change in Amelia's demeanor, a new preoccupation in her eyes, moments of distant thought during their conversations. When she suggested dinner at her apartment rather than at a restaurant or his home, he sensed something significant was coming. Amelia had prepared a simple meal, but Ethan could see her hands trembling slightly as she served it. They made small talk about their day until finally, she set down her fork and took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. Ethan reached across the table to take her hand. "Whatever it is, we'll figure out together." "I'm pregnant," she said, watching his face carefully. "Actually, I'm pregnant with twins." For a moment, Ethan remained completely still, his expression unreadable. Then a complex series of emotions crossed his face: shock, confusion, and something else Amelia couldn't quite identify. "Twins," he repeated finally, as though testing the word. "We're having twins." "I know this isn't what either of us planned," Amelia continued quickly. "It's happened so fast, and we're still figuring out what we are to each other. I want you to know that I don't expect." "Marry me," Ethan interrupted, the words tumbling out with uncharacteristic impulsivity. Amelia stared at him. "What?" "Marry me," he repeated, more deliberately this time. "Not because of the babies, though there's certainly a miracle I never dare hope for. Marry me because these past months with you have been the only time in my life I felt truly alive. Marry me because I love you, Amelia." The declaration hung in the air between them, the first time either had spoken those words aloud. "Ethan," she began carefully, "I love you too, more than I thought possible. But marriage is an enormous step, and with the babies coming, I don't want you to feel obligated." Obligated. Ethan's voice held a note of incredulity. Amelia, you've given me a gift I never thought I'd have, a chance at a real family. Something I've been missing my entire life without fully understanding what was absent. He moved to kneel beside her chair, taking both her hands in his. I'm not asking out of obligation. I'm asking because finding out we're going to be parents has clarified what I've known for months, that I want to build a life with you. All of you, he added, gently placing a hand on her stomach. Tears filled Amelia's eyes as she leaned forward to kiss him. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Yes, I'll marry you. Later that night, as they lay together planning their future, Ethan confessed his fears about fatherhood. My own father was hardly a role model. What if I don't know how to be the parent these children deserve? The fact that you're worried about it tells me you'll be wonderful, Amelia assured him. We'll learn together. I want to do this right, he said with sudden determination. All of it, the marriage, the babies, creating a real home, not just going through the motions like my parents did. In the month that followed, both Amelia and Ethan underwent transformations that surprised everyone around them. Ethan, the once reserved billionaire who avoided personal entanglements, became fully immersed in preparations for their new family. He insisted on attending every prenatal appointment, asking thorough questions that impressed even Amelia's obstetrician colleagues. The cold, minimalist mansion underwent a renovation to create a warm family home, with Ethan personally overseeing the design of the nursery. He read parenting books with the same intensity he once reserved for business reports, making annotations and creating spreadsheets of important information. You don't need to become a parenting expert overnight, Amelia laughed one evening, finding him surrounded by books on infant development. I have 35 years of preparation to catch up on, he replied seriously. For her part, Amelia navigated the physical challenges of a twin pregnancy while transitioning her role at the hospital to allow for maternity leave. The prenatal care initiative continued to flourish, with plans to expand to neighboring communities. She and Ethan were married in a small ceremony in the garden of his, now their countryside home, with only close friends and family present. As Amelia's due date approached, they found themselves having late-night conversations about their hopes and fears for their children. I want them to know they're loved unconditionally, Ethan said one night, his hand resting protectively on Amelia's rounded belly. Not for their achievements or appearances or anything else, just for being themselves. They will, Amelia promised, covering his hand with hers. They'll have everything that matters. When the twins, a boy and a girl, arrived 2 weeks early on a snowy December morning, Ethan was transformed by the experience. Hospital staff who knew Amelia were astonished to see the famously composed billionaire openly weeping as he held his son and daughter for the first time. They're perfect, he whispered in awe. Absolutely perfect. They named the twins Thomas and Eleanor. Thomas after Amelia's grandfather who had encouraged the pursuit of medicine, and Eleanor after the nurse who had shown kindness to Ethan during his mother's illness. The first weeks at home were an exhausting blur of feedings, diaper changes, and precious moments of connection. Ethan surprised Amelia by being fully hands-on, never hesitating to take night shifts or handle the less glamorous aspects of infant care. You're a natural, she observed one evening, finding him in the nursery softly singing to Eleanor while Thomas slept nearby. Not natural, he corrected with a smile, just motivated by love. 6 months after the twins' birth, as their little family settled into a new rhythm, Ethan proposed an addition to the Prenatal Care Initiative, a foundation specifically focused on supporting single parents and children in need. Too many children grow up without the security we can give Thomas and Eleanor, he explained. We can't fix everything, but we can make a difference for some families. The Cole Family Foundation was established with an initial endowment from Ethan's personal fortune and a mission statement crafted jointly with Amelia to ensure every child has the opportunity to thrive and every parent the support to help them do so. By the twins' first birthday, the foundation had established programs in 5 communities, providing everything from child care subsidies to parenting resources and educational support. What had begun as a professional collaboration between a reserved billionaire and a compassionate doctor had evolved into a partnership that transformed not only their own lives, but countless others. As Thomas and Eleanor approached their second birthday, the Cole family had found their rhythm. Ethan had restructured Coltech to allow him to work primarily from home 3 days a week, an arrangement that shocked his executive team but ultimately inspired similar flexibility throughout the company. Amelia had returned to the hospital part-time, focusing on her research while maintaining close involvement with the prenatal initiative and foundation. Their home had become a place of warmth and laughter, so different from the austere mansion Ethan had occupied in solitude for years. Children's toys mingled with medical journals on coffee tables. Family photographs lined walls once adorned only with abstract art. The sound of tiny feet pattering across hardwood floors had replaced the echoing silence. One evening, as they sat together on the patio watching the twins play in the garden, Ethan reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 2 years ago, I thought my life was complete, he said quietly. I had everything society told me should bring fulfillment, success, wealth, autonomy, yet I was sleepwalking through existence. Amelia leaned against his shoulder, and I was so focused on caring for others that I convinced myself I didn't have time for my own happiness. They watched as Thomas carefully offered a flower to his sister, his little face serious with concentration. Eleanor accepted it with a delighted squeal, then promptly tried to eat it, causing both parents to move simultaneously to intervene. Later, after the twins were tucked into bed and the house had quieted, Ethan and Amelia sat in the study, now filled with a blend of both their books and interests, discussing the Foundation's latest initiative. The Cole Family Foundation had expanded beyond its initial scope, now addressing systematic issues affecting family wellness across multiple communities. I've been thinking about something, Ethan said, closing his laptop. The Foundation's work is important, but there's a disconnect between the policies we're advocating and the people implementing them. Too many decisions are made by those who've never experienced the challenges firsthand. Amelia looked up with interest. What are you suggesting? A bridge program, something that brings together policymakers, healthcare providers, and the families they serve in meaningful dialogue, not just focus groups or surveys, but ongoing collaboration. His eyes held the intensity that appeared whenever he was pursuing a new idea. It was the same expression Amelia had first noticed during their initial meeting years ago, a glimpse of the passion beneath his reserved exterior. You're talking about changing how the entire system functions, she observed. Yes, he acknowledged. It's ambitious. But if anyone can create that bridge between worlds, it's us. You understand the medical system from the inside. I understand the business and policy angles. And together, we've experienced how life can change in unexpected ways. Amelia considered the proposal, already seeing its potential. We could start with the communities where the prenatal initiative is established. We already have relationships there. Their discussion continued late into the night, both energized by the possibility of creating something transformative. This had become the pattern of their partnership, ideas flowing between them, each building on the other's thoughts until something greater than either could have conceived alone took shape. The next morning, watching Ethan prepare breakfast for the twins, managing to look dignified despite wearing sweatpants and having applesauce smeared on his shirt by Eleanor, Amelia was struck by how profoundly he had changed. The reserved, isolated man she'd first met had evolved into this present, engaged father and husband who found joy in the everyday moments many took for granted. What? Ethan asked, noticing her thoughtful gaze. Just thinking about how far we've come, she replied with a smile. The notorious recluse billionaire making animal-shaped pancakes. They're supposed to be dinosaurs, he clarified with mock seriousness. Clearly, she laughed, kissing his cheek before helping Thomas with his sippy cup. As the bridge program took shape over following months, Ethan and Amelia found themselves frequently reflecting on their own journey as they worked to connect different worlds. The program brought together diverse perspectives, from hospital administrators to community health workers, from policymakers to parents struggling to navigate complex healthcare systems. During one particularly powerful session, a single mother described her experience trying to access prenatal care while working 2 jobs without paid time off. Her story resonated deeply with Ethan, who found himself sharing more than he had intended about his own mother's experience. The system failed her, he said quietly, not because the care wasn't available, but because accessing it required privileges she didn't have: time, transportation, an understanding employer. These aren't mere inconveniences. They're barriers that can mean the difference between life and death. His uncharacteristically personal contribution shifted the conversation from abstract policy to human impact. By the session's end, concrete action steps had emerged that addressed the real-world obstacles families faced. "You were remarkable today," Amelia told him afterward as they walked to their car. That vulnerability changed the entire dynamic. Ethan considered this. 5 years ago, I couldn't have done it. I wouldn't have understood the value of sharing personal experience. And even if I had, I wouldn't have had the courage. "What changed?" she asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "Everything," he said simply, taking her hand. "You, the twins. Learning that strength isn't about maintaining distance, but about creating connection." That evening, a package arrived at their home, a handcrafted wooden box containing letters from families who had benefited from their programs. The accompanying note explained that staff from various initiative sites had collected these testimonials as a second anniversary gift for the foundation. Sitting together in the living room after the twins were asleep, Ethan and Amelia read each letter. Stories of healthy babies born to mothers who had received proper prenatal care. Accounts from parents who had accessed resources through the foundation that enabled them to provide better lives for their children. Heartfelt thanks from healthcare workers who could now serve their communities more effectively. "This is our legacy," Amelia said softly, wiping away tears. "Not just Thomas and Eleanor, but all of these lives we've touched." Ethan nodded, unusually emotional. "When I think about how close I came to missing all of this, if you hadn't submitted that proposal, if I hadn't decided to fund healthcare innovation that particular day, some might call it fate," Amelia suggested. "I call it the best decision I ever made," Ethan replied, pulling her close. "Second only to saying yes when you told me about the twins." As they sat together, surrounded by tangible evidence of the difference their partnership had made, both recognized a profound truth at the heart of their journey, that the walls we build to protect ourselves often become the barriers that prevent us from experiencing life's greatest joys. It had taken Ethan 35 years of solitude to find the courage to let someone in, and Amelia years of caring for others before allowing herself to be cared for. Yet in finding each other, in that unexpected connection between a reserved billionaire and a selfless doctor, they had created something that extended far beyond themselves. A family, a foundation, and a future where the bridges between different worlds offered passage to something better for all who crossed them.